Good afternoon. Today we are going to be making a newborn diaper cover with gussets, and I'm using the free pattern that was designed by Allison of prefold2fitted.blogspot.com. So I've already gone ahead and cut out my cotton fabric and the piece of waterproof pull fabric, and I've already done the rise snaps. This is a size small newborn, so you can snap it up for a newborn and then open it up for small, makes it last a little bit longer, which is really nice. So I cut out my piece, and then her instructions don't include anything about a gusset. But what I did is, as I was cutting out the piece, I went ahead and cut a straight line right along where the leftover pull was. See, here you go. Just like that. One on each side. So that you know that the curve is right. I just cut it from the piece that I cut out already. And I've already gone ahead and added the snaps. So what I'm going to do next is take both of these pieces, and along the straight edge I'm going to sew my FOE, fold over elastic. I am not going to pull this very much. I'm going to pull it just a little bit. So cut out the piece I need. I've already got matching thread on my machine, and I am going to use a 3-step zigzag, which is this one right there. If you don't have a 3-step zigzag, then use a regular one. So it's fold over elastic because it's already kind of got a scoring mark for where you fold it over. So put your fabric in the middle. It doesn't matter which side of the pull is facing up. Sandwich it in the middle of the fold over elastic. Get it under your machine. And then figure out the rest. Now that you've got it kind of going, now you're going to start pulling a little bit. Not a lot, just a little bit. And you want to sew it so that when it comes to the outer edge, it's right along the edge of the FOE. Okay, see how it's not on the outer edge, it's right along the inner edge in a 3-step zigzag with just a little bit of ruffle to it from the stretch. Not a lot. Set that piece aside and go ahead and do another one. Now to measure how much I need, I put my piece on top of it, and then I know I'm going to stretch it, so I just cut it a little bit shorter. And remember, we're doing this on the straight edge, not the curved edge of this little half moon piece of fabric here. another piece done. Now I'm going to go back to my main piece, and I decided that this one is going to have snap or velcro appliques closure. So I'm going to cut out a piece and sew it on there, and we'll be back. Okay, so we left off yesterday, and I needed to still apply this strip of appliques to the front, but you know what, I'm feeling kind of lazy, and I already have the green thread in my machine, so I'm going to save this part for later. It doesn't really matter if it's done first or last, so I'm going to go ahead and move on with my two pieces that are going to be for my gussets. And I have to figure out, I probably should have marked this, what went where. And you want to make sure that you do this with the shiny side of the pull facing in and the fabric side facing out. So something like this. And the easiest way to do it is to mark the center. So I'm going to fold my diaper in half and mark the center of each side. And then I'm going to fold my gusset in half and mark the center of that. And that's how I know I'm going to line it up. I'm going to do it with right sides together. So purple to purple. And put a pin there right at the center. And then just kind of figure out where the start would be. And you're going to want to start this with the FOE kind of hanging off the sides. Because if you line up the bottom of it, then this top part will never get caught in the final elastic. This is just a straight stitch. It can be a pretty long straight stitch because you're going to put FOE over top of this anyway. And then you are just going to kind of keep curving this so that it always lines up with the outside edge of the diaper. So I do a little bit. I have my needle down, lift up the presser foot, and rotate. A little bit, lift, rotate. I'm using about 1/8 of an inch seam allowance here. And again, for the final stretch, you want, it looks funny because you want the FOE hanging over the side because you want to line up this top edge. Now you have to do a fair amount of guesswork. So now flip it over and make sure that you caught all the layers in your stitching. And see, there you get a general idea. Cut off the extra here, and when you're looking at it from the outside, this part that sticks out, you want to cut that off so that it doesn't get in the way when you go to attach your final binding. Okay, so there's our prototype for one side. And if I check my work, I can see that I pretty much lined up the lines for the two middle pieces. So I'm going to go ahead and do that again. And again, every couple centimeters, leave the needle down, pick it up, and rotate. And yes, it will pull this part with it, but that's okay. And when you get to the end, it'll really start lifting up back here. Again, that's fine. All right, this is where you really are going to have to turn. Okay. Okay, there is our other gusset, and again, there's going to be extra to clip off here, and on this side there's quite a bit of extra. Get my strings off. There's a whole bunch over here, but that's okay. Okay, so there's our little prototype. It sets up like a little boat. And we are ready for the actual fold-over elastic. I always like to start it with the fold-over elastic at the front, because if the seam is at the front, nobody is really looking at it because it's going to be covered up with the closure tabs. So I never really know how much of this I'm going to use because it really just kind of depends on how hard I stretch. So I leave it all in a roll and pick a spot here at the front, doesn't really matter much where, and fold it over. I almost used it the wrong way there, that would have been terrible. The right side is nice and soft and fuzzy. The inside looks like elastic and ribbed, and it'll fold easy one way. Okay, so we are getting ready to start the fold over elastic here. I'm going to set my machine back to my 3-step zigzag number 8. And it is a 5 width and a 2 length. And you definitely want to pick a starting spot where it can be straight and not stretched at all. So that's why the front is usually the best bet. And to have a nice clean joining of the beginning and ending, the way I do it is to leave the first inch or so unsewn. And you'll see why here when we get to the end. So fold your elastic over and go about an inch in. Put down your presser foot, and before you start sewing, double check that everything is tucked in the way it's supposed to be. Hold on to your tails. And we are not stretching whatsoever right now, and remember that when it gets to that outside stitch, you want it to be right at the line. Okay, when we get to the curve, you're going to go gentle. And again, keep that needle down and release the tension, rotate. Slow and steady wins the race right here. I do a few stitches, pick it back up, rotate it again. Now as we get to this gusset, you're going to want to make sure that that gusset is tucked all the way under. And it's going to take some tugging and pulling. Okay, I am about to get to the part where my gusset starts. So I know that it's going to be really thick because I'm basically going through 4 layers of the fold over elastic. Okay, stop, and again keep making sure that that gusset is tucked up out of the way. And now we want to start pulling. Pull as hard as you can while still keeping everything under control. Pause to readjust frequently. Use both hands. Pull. Make sure everything's tucked under, stayed in place. And this is where it gets tricky again because we're getting to where that FOE ends in the gusset. So you really want to make sure everything is tucked in place. You're still giving it a pull. And then you can ease up. As we get here to the wing part, now we stop pulling. Now that I've kind of gone far enough, I'm going to take the opportunity to flip this over and check my work. Looks good. There's No bits hanging out, which is good. Okay. Okay, once you get back to the straightaway, you want to go back to pulling and stretching. Make sure everything is nice and tucked into the middle. Okay, we're getting back to where that gusset began again. So just use your fingers, make sure everything's tucked in there the way it's supposed to be. One hand in front, one hand in back. And when you get to where that gusset is when you start pulling as hard as you can again. Okay, as we get to the end, we have a better idea of where this FOE is going to need to stop. So I'm going to cut it right there and lift up my presser foot at this time. Now see, I didn't catch it all when I was doing it. So I'm going to have to go back in and lift up this little piece and tuck it back under. But I'll deal with that later. First, I've got my two ends here. I'm going to flip it so that they're right sides together. And sew them shut. Okay, I'm sorry I've been away from this project for a couple of days, but where we had left off was we had just joined this piece of FOE together. So remember, just put the right sides together, sewed it, and we are ready to finish it off. So I'm going to make sure my machine is set back to my 3-step zigzag. And go back a couple of paces from where you left off. Now my machine has this little button, which is, it eliminates the need for a back stitch. It makes a stay stitch when I push it. So it'll make the needle go up and down a couple of times, locking the stitch in place so that I don't need an ugly back and forward stitch where you're going to be able to see it. And I'm going to put my needle down and lift up my presser foot and take this opportunity to make sure that the fabric is nicely encased, and then I will go. Now this is the front of the diaper, so I do not need to stretch in any way. Overlap a couple of stitches where you left off, and then again I'm going to push the button for my locking stitch. And there we go. That is our lovely joining of the two pieces. Looks much nicer than some of the other methods that I had tried before, and less lumpy. So I am going to trim my threads here. And we are ready to change out the thread on my machine back to white so that I can finally put the Velcro on the front of the diaper and do the Velcro on the wings, and then I'll be done. But here we've got the basic shape of the newborn diaper. It's nice and stretchy here at the legs with our gusset. So you can see that when it goes on the baby, there's probably a good inch of a little pocket there to hold any liquid messes in. And the shiny side of the pull is up so that it's totally wipeable. So I'm going to change my thread and we'll be back. Okay, I have cut all the pieces that I need to attach the Velcro. I have a strip of the loop that's about 6.5 inches long, and then I have 4 of these pieces of loop that are about 1.5 inch, and 2 of the hook about 1.5 inch. And stick 2 of these together, and I just kind of freeform it, but you can trace a tab from a diaper that you already like, whatever makes you happy. So I'm going to start with the loop here for the front. And get it marked out about where you want it. And this is totally your choice if you want to zigzag over the edge or just do a straight stitch. I'm choosing to just do a straight stitch, but if you're not 100% sure on the quality of your loop and you think it might fray, do a zigzag. Keep that needle down, lift your presser foot and pivot. So I just finished with a little back stitch where I started. And you can see the back. Okay. Now we want some laundry tabs, because with hook and loop diapers, you always want something for that tab to go to. So I'm going to put that right there on the inside of the wing. Now if you were doing a snap closure, you wouldn't have to mess with this, which is a bonus for snaps. I personally am a fan of appliques in all sizes, but especially in the newborn size. You want to get it nice and tight on their round little bellies. Otherwise, it's just going to roll poop out of there. Now you can kind of see the stitching from the outside, but it's not that big of a deal. If you wanted it to be really proper, you would sew these to the pull before you join them together so that you wouldn't have any stitching visible on the outside. Alright, I'm going to skip ahead and do my tag at this time just because I'm looking at right where I want it. I always try to stick my tag here on the side of the wing where it's out of the way of any type of stretch. And we are ready for our last part. Now this is the hook side facing down and the loop side facing up, and I just kind of join them together by feel. You know, flip it back and forth a couple times. See if it all looks kind of lined up. Hold it real tight with your fingers and then slide it under. You definitely want your needle to stay down so that you don't lose your spot. I don't want these threads to get all tangled up in there, so I'm going to cut them off right away. And then just rotate. I go around the whole tab twice. And then do a back stitch to end. If you need to do any trimming, you can do that. And stick it to your laundry tab there so that it's safe and out of the way. One more and we are done. A lot of people, when they do this, use a little glue stick in between these two layers. I actually haven't had a whole lot of success with that. I don't know if my glue sticks just suck or what, but they don't seem to actually stick the two pieces together. But if you want to give that a try, a lot of people do that. Okay, that looks great. So there is our final product on the inside. And you'll be able to snap it down to a newborn or unsnapped for a small. And there we go. There's our final product with the nice little gusset on the inside.